Billionaire CEO challenged poor Maid to last 5 minutes alone with him. She stayed forever. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Romance Rewind Stories. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying these heartwarming tales, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. It's quick, it's free, and it's the best way to support us in bringing you more emotional romance stories. And here's something I'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing our amazing community from around the world. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us grow and reach more people who love these kinds of tales. Now, let's get into today's story. Billionaire CEO challenged poor Maid to last 5 minutes alone with him. She stayed forever. The challenge started as a cruel joke at a charity gala that Briar Santos had no business attending, at least not as a guest. At 24, she was there in a maid's uniform, one of 30 service workers hired for the evening to keep champagne glasses full and surfaces pristine at the Wolf Grand Hotel. The event was black tie, dripping with wealth she'd never touch, filled with people who looked through her like she was furniture. Briar had been working 3 jobs for the past 2 years: maid service during the day, bartending 4 nights a week, and weekend shifts at a coffee shop that opened at 5 a.m. Between all of them, she barely cleared $28,000 a year, barely enough to cover rent in the moldy apartment she shared with 3 roommates, barely enough to make minimum payments on the $50,000 in medical debt her father had left behind when he died 6 months ago. She dropped out of nursing school in her junior year when her dad got sick, pancreatic cancer. 18 months of watching him deteriorate while working every available hour to pay for treatments that ultimately didn't work. Now he was gone, and she was drowning in bills from a battle they'd lost. But tonight wasn't about her problems. Tonight was about staying invisible, doing her job, collecting her $150 check, and going home. That plan lasted until 9:47 p.m., when a drunk investor grabbed her wrist as she was clearing champagne flutes. "Hey, pretty thing," he slurred, trying to pull her onto his lap. "Come sit with me. I'll make it worth your while." Briar extracted her wrist with practiced efficiency. This wasn't her first handsy drunk, and stepped back smoothly. "I'm working, sir. Can I get you some water?" "I don't want water, I want—" The lady said no. The voice came from behind Briar, deep and cold enough to freeze the drunk mid-sentence. Briar turned and found herself looking up, way up, at a man who radiated power like other people radiated body heat. He was probably late 30s, over 6 feet tall, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo that somehow made him look more dangerous than elegant. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes that were almost black, eyes currently fixed on the drunk investor with an expression that made the man suddenly very sober. "Mr. Wolf, I didn't mean—" "You were just leaving," the man said quietly. "Security will escort you out." The drunk scrambled away, and Briar found herself alone with the most intimidating person she'd ever encountered. This was Castellan Wolf. The Castellan Wolf, CEO of Wolf Global, worth approximately $8 billion according to Forbes, and owner of the hotel they were currently standing in. "Thank you," Briar managed. "I had it handled, but I appreciate the backup." "You did have it handled," Castellan agreed, his intense gaze shifting to her. "You extracted yourself professionally without causing a scene. That takes skill. That takes 6 years of customer service experience and a high tolerance for inappropriate behavior." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Fair point. What's your name?" Briar Santos." "Well, Briar Santos, enjoy your evening." He turned to walk away, but a voice stopped him. "Castellan! There you are. I've been looking for you." A man in his 40s approached, holding 2 glasses of scotch. He looked between Castellan and Briar with barely concealed amusement. "Making friends with the staff? That's new behavior for you." Marcus, this is Briar. She was handling an uncomfortable situation with impressive professionalism. Briar, this is Marcus Chen, my business partner and occasional pain in my ass. Charmed, Marcus said, then turned to Castellan with a smirk. You know, I was just telling the board earlier that you're impossible to work with. Too intimidating. Normal people can't handle 5 minutes of your attention without getting nervous breakdowns. Castellan's jaw tightened. That's an exaggeration, is it? Name one person outside the executive team who can have a normal conversation with you without looking like they're facing a firing squad. Something about the dismissive way Marcus spoke. Briar wasn't even standing there. Service workers were less than human, irritated Castellan deeply. He made a decision that was either brilliant or completely insane. I'll bet you $100,000, Castellan said slowly, that Briar can handle more than 5 minutes alone with me. Marcus laughed. You're joking. I'm completely serious. $100,000 says this woman can last 5 minutes in my office having a normal conversation without running away, terrified. Briar's eyes widened. Excuse me? Marcus studied Castellan, then shrugged. Fine. I'll match it. 200,000 total if she actually stays the full 5 minutes. But Castellan, when she leaves after 2 minutes, I'm going to remind you of this conversation for the rest of your life. Wait, Briar interjected, her heart pounding. Don't I get a say in this insane bet? Castellan turned to her fully, and the intensity of his focus made her breath catch. You absolutely get a say. In fact, you get the only say that matters. I'm offering you $200,000 if you can stay in my office with me for exactly 5 minutes. Just talking. Nothing physical, nothing inappropriate. You can leave at any time, but if you leave before the 5 minutes are up, you get nothing. If you stay the full time, the money is yours. Why? Briar asked, her mind racing. $200,000. That would pay off her entire medical debt with money left over. That would let her go back to nursing school. That would change everything. Because Marcus thinks I'm so intimidating that normal people can't handle being around me. I disagree. I think you're capable of having a perfectly normal conversation, and I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. This is insane, Briar said. Completely. Castellan agreed. But is it insane enough that you're willing to walk away from $200,000? Briar looked at this billionaire who had just defended her from a drunk, who was now offering her more money than she'd made in the last 7 years combined, and made a calculation. What did she have to lose? 5 minutes of her time. She said finally, I accept your insane bet. But Mr. Wolf, I need to be clear. If you touch me inappropriately or this becomes uncomfortable in any way, I'm leaving immediately and filing charges, money or no money. Understood completely. And Briar, call me Castellan. If we're doing this, we do it as equals. He led her through the gala, past curious stares from wealthy guests, wondering why the CEO was leaving with a maid, to a private elevator that required a key card. They rode in silence to the top floor. And when the doors opened, Briar found herself in the most beautiful office she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, minimalist furniture in shades of grey and black, a desk that looked like a sculpture. Everything about the space screamed power and money. Castellan gestured to a leather couch that probably cost more than her car. Sit wherever you're comfortable. I'll set the timer. He pulled out his phone, opened the timer app, and set it for exactly 5 minutes. Starting now. 5E 4:58. Briar sat carefully on the edge of the couch, hyper-aware of her polyester uniform against the expensive leather. Castellan sat across from her in a chair, and the intensity of his gaze made her understand why people found him intimidating. So, Castellan said, tell me about yourself. Briar almost laughed. That's your intimidating conversation starter. Tell me about yourself. I'm trying to be polite. Would you prefer I stare at you in silence for 5 minutes? God, no, that would be terrifying. Briar took a breath. I'm 24. I work 3 jobs, maid service during the day, bartending at the Rusty Nail 4 nights a week, and weekend morning shifts at Java Junction. Between all three, I make just enough to cover rent and my dad's medical debt. Your father was sick. He died 6 months ago, pancreatic cancer, 18 months from diagnosis to death, and I spent every penny I had trying to save him. Dropped out of nursing school because I couldn't work full-time and study. Now I have 50,000 in medical bills from a battle we lost, and no degree to show for the years I spent in school. 412 remaining. Castellan's expression softened in a way that made him look less like a terrifying CEO and more like a human being. I'm sorry. That's devastating. Thank you, it is. But that's life, right? You deal with what you're given. Briar leaned back slightly, feeling marginally more comfortable. What about you? Aside from being a billionaire who makes weird bets with employees. I'm 37. I inherited Wolf Global from my father when I was 25. It was failing, hemorrhaging money, outdated business model, toxic culture. I spent the last 12 years rebuilding it into what it is now. Never married, because I've never met anyone who wanted me rather than my money. No kids, because I work 80 hours a week and wouldn't be a good father. That's depressing. That's honest. Most people lie about being happy. I'd rather be honest about being lonely. 331 remaining. Why do people find you intimidating? Briar asked, genuinely curious now. Because I don't waste time on social niceties. I'm direct, I expect competence, and I don't tolerate incompetence. I don't smile unless I mean it. Apparently that makes me scary. You're not scary. You're just German. Castellan blinked. What? German. Efficient, direct, no nonsense. People mistake cultural differences for intimidation. You're not mean. You're just honest. There's a huge difference. And for the first time in years, Castellan laughed, actually laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. Did you just compare my personality to a national stereotype? If the lederhosen fits, Briar grinned, surprised by how comfortable she suddenly felt. 247 remaining. You're not what I expected, Castellan said, leaning forward. What did you expect? Someone nervous, intimidated, watching the clock waiting to escape. Instead, you're analyzing my personality and making jokes. It's refreshing. I've dealt with way scarier people than you. Try working a Saturday night shift at a dive bar. Drunk bikers who haven't showered in a week and think they're entitled to grab your ass. That's intimidating. You're just a guy in an expensive suit who happens to have a very intense stare. My intense stare doesn't bother you. Should it? You're looking at me like I'm interesting. Nobody's looked at me like that in years. Usually people look through me. Invisible help. You're actually seeing me. That's not intimidating. That's kind of nice, actually. 203 remaining. Castellan felt something shift in his chest. This woman, this maid in a polyester uniform who made minimum wage and carried more debt than some people earned in a year, had just articulated something he'd never been able to express. She saw him, really saw him. Not his money or power, just him. Can I ask you something personal? Castellan said quietly. You're paying me $200,000 for 5 minutes. At that rate, you can ask me anything. If you had the money, the $200,000, what would you do with it? Briar didn't hesitate. Pay off my debt, every penny. Then I'd have about $150,000 left. I'd use $50,000 to finish nursing school. The rest I'd save, maybe finally have an emergency fund. Maybe not live to paycheck, constantly terrified that one unexpected expense will destroy me. 118 remaining. And after nursing school, what then? I'd work in pediatric oncology, kids with cancer. I spent 18 months watching my dad die, and the only people who made it bearable were the nurses. They saw him as a person, not just a patient. I want to do that for other families. Be the person who makes impossible situations slightly less unbearable. 052 remaining. Castellan made a decision. What if I offered you more than just 200,000? Briar frowned. 038 remaining. What if I offered you a job, personal assistant, 150,000 a year? You'd work directly with me, scheduling, correspondence, special projects. It's demanding, but you'd have real benefits, regular hours, and you could take night classes to finish your degree. 024 remaining. Why would you offer me a job? You don't know anything about me. 0015 remaining. I know you're intelligent, honest, and brave enough to accept an insane bet from a stranger. I know you spent 18 months sacrificing everything for your father. I know you handled drunk investors and intimidating billionaires with equal grace. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. And Briar, I don't make offers I don't mean. 005 remaining. This is insane. 002 remaining. Yes, but sometimes insane is exactly what we need. The timer chimed, loud in the quiet office. 5 minutes, Castellan said, standing. You won. $200,000 will be transferred to your account tomorrow morning, but the job offer stands separately. Think about it. Briar stood slowly, her legs shaking. You're serious about all of it? Completely serious. Here. He pulled a business card from his wallet, wrote something on the back. My personal number. Call me when you decide. About the job. Or if you just want to talk for longer than 5 minutes. Briar took the card, and when their fingers brushed, she felt electricity shoot up her arm. From the way Castellan's eyes darkened, he felt it too. Thank you, Briar said quietly, for seeing me, for this conversation, for treating me like I matter. You do matter. And Briar, you stayed the entire 5 minutes without even glancing at the clock. You proved Marcus wrong and reminded me that not everyone is intimidated by intensity. That's worth far more than $200,000. Briar left, her mind spinning. As she rode the elevator down, she realized she'd forgotten to be nervous, forgotten to be intimidated. She'd just been herself, and somehow that had been enough. 3 days passed before Briar called. She spent those days working her 3 jobs, thinking constantly about the conversation, the money, the job offer. Finally, on her lunch break at the coffee shop, she dialed the number on the card. Castellan answered on the first ring. Briar, how did you know it was me? I've been waiting for you to call. I saved your number. That's presumptuous. That's hopeful. Have you decided? Briar took a breath. I accept the job, but I have conditions. Name them. First, you pay for my nursing school tuition up front, and I pay you back through payroll deductions from my salary. I won't take it as charity. Second, if this gets uncomfortable or crosses lines, I can leave without penalty or consequences. Third, we're clear about boundaries. This is professional, not whatever else it might become. Agreed to all 3. When can you start? I need 2 weeks to give notice at my other jobs. Done. Briar? Yes. Thank you for taking this chance. On the job. On me. Thank you for seeing me as more than invisible. That night at the gala, when you defended me from that drunk, that was the first time in 2 years anyone treated me like I was worth protecting. So thank you. Over the next 6 months, Briar became indispensable. She learned Castellan's rhythms, anticipated his needs, and wasn't afraid to tell him when he was being unreasonable. She made him laugh, genuinely laugh, at least once a day. She challenged his assumptions and somehow made his 80-hour work weeks feel less exhausting. And somewhere between late-night strategy sessions and early-morning coffee runs, they fell in love. It happened gradually, then all at once. The way Castellan started smiling when she entered a room, the way Briar found herself dressing more carefully, caring what he thought. The way their hands would brush over documents and linger just a moment too long. 6 months and 3 days after that first 5-minute conversation, everything changed. They were alone in his office at nearly midnight, reviewing quarterly projections. Briar had kicked off her heels, feet tucked under her on the couch, hair falling out of its professional bun. Castellan sat across from her, tie loosened, looking more relaxed than he'd been all week. We have a problem, Castellan said suddenly. Briar looked up from her laptop. What kind of problem? Budget? Timeline? Staffing? Personal. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. What? I'm in love with my assistant. That's inappropriate, complicated, and potentially a massive HR nightmare. But it's also true, and I'm tired of pretending it's not. Briar's heart hammered against her ribs. Castellan, you don't have to say anything. I know the power dynamic makes this impossible. I know I'm your boss, and that complicates everything. But Briar, I've been falling for you since that first 5-minute conversation, and I can't keep pretending I only see you as an employee. You're brilliant and funny, and you make me want to be better, and I needed you to know that. Fire me, Briar said. What? She closed her laptop, turned to face him fully. Fire me! Effective immediately. Then you're not my boss anymore, and we can deal with this honestly. I can't fire you. You need this job. The salary, the benefits, paying back your loans. I have my nursing degree now, finished last week. You helped me with the final project, remember? I can get a hospital job starting at $70,000 a year. But Castellan, if you mean what you just said, if this is real, then we need to remove the employment complication. So fire me, or I'll quit. Either way, we're equals or we're nothing. Castellan stared at her, then started laughing. You're incredible. Most people would run from this conversation. You're demanding I fire you so we can date properly. I'm practical. And yes, I'm in love with you too. Fell for you around month 3 when you cried watching that documentary about orphaned elephants. You're not nearly as intimidating as people think. You're just a man who feels things deeply and doesn't know how to show it. And I love that about you. I'm firing you, Castellan said, standing and moving toward her. Effective immediately. Terminated, let go, dismissed. Good, Briar said, standing to meet him. Now kiss me before I change my mind about this whole insane situation. He did, and it was everything. Desperate and gentle and perfect, 6 months of tension finally released in one moment. For the record, Briar murmured against his lips, I stayed way longer than 5 minutes. I noticed. Best bet I ever made. They got married exactly 1 year after that first 5-minute challenge, in a small ceremony that Marcus officiated with barely contained glee. 1 year ago, Marcus said in his toast, I told Castellan he was too intimidating for normal people, that no one could handle 5 minutes of his intensity, and this incredible woman proved me spectacularly wrong. She didn't just handle 5 minutes, she stayed forever. To Briar and Castellan, proof that the best love stories start with someone brave enough to take a bet. Years later, when people asked how they met, Briar would smile and say, he bet me $200,000 I couldn't handle 5 minutes with him. I won the bet and his heart. We both got exactly what we needed. Because sometimes 5 minutes is all it takes to recognize your future. Sometimes the best relationships start with an insane challenge. And sometimes the person brave enough to accept that challenge becomes the person you can't imagine living without. Proving that real connection has nothing to do with intimidation and everything to do with being seen. And that's where our story ends today. What did you think? Did Briar and Castellan's story of a 5-minute bet turning into forever love touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was. If you enjoyed this story, we have so many more waiting for you. Check out our playlist for more heartwarming romance tales that will make you believe in love all over again. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and remember, the best stories are the ones that remind us we all deserve our happily ever after. See you in the next story.